The secondary market is all but gone. And the more rhetoric we see like this, the more mint closures, the more supply chain problems, the more comments from officials on high posts, the more difficult it's going to become.
This is Dunnigan Kaiser, founder of Liberty and Finance. I'm now a licensed gold and silver broker for Miles Franklin. Call me directly for the physical gold and silver that you need at the best price with personalized private service from one of the oldest and best companies in the business. For fastest service, just call 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 888-81-LIBERTY. And either I or one of my sons and fellow brokers will call you back as soon as we can and understand your needs. Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We have an important update from the U.S. Mint, and we are with Andy Schectman, the CEO of Miles Franklin Precious Metals. This is Saturday, May 29, 2021. Andy, thanks for coming back on.
Yeah, absolutely. This is an interesting statement from the U.S. Mint. For sure, everyone needs to hear this one.
Yeah, we've usually have you on every Tuesday for a weekly market update, but this one is out of cycle because it's a breaking news story. We are actually tipped off to this by one of our clients, and that's not the first time that's happened. We had a client tell us in the past about the $67 an ounce U.S. Silver Eagle collectible coins that were coming out. We also had a tip from them in the past about potential closures of the U.S. Mint. Different things have come up at different times, and we've tried to demystify that. Also, there was a tip about a data breach at JM Bullion. So we just wanted to talk with you about what we know about this particular announcement, which was officially titled An Important Update from the United States Mint. It was released from them on their Facebook page, on their Twitter page. It appeared in an article on Maneko64's channel. It also appeared in an article on Zero Hedge. We've had John Adams from Australia tweeting out about it and what this all means. Can you talk to us about this, which they are underscoring as a global silver shortage? This is an official communication from the U.S. Mint. What do we know about that?
Well, I'm gonna kind of maybe set the stage in the respect that I don't know how long ago this came out, but I just saw the other night Ed Moy, who was the former head of the U.S. Mint, was on Kitco News, and Ed Moy came out and said a couple of things that really, I think, crystallize what the U.S. Mint just publicly came out and printed yesterday. Ed Moy said that the reason the prices have been depressed in the precious metals market is because that there are banks that are manipulatively shorting precious metals. He came out and admitted to the fact that there are banks that are manipulating and shorting the price of metal. He also mentioned that the market, the COMEX market, is rehypothecated at a 65-to-1 level. Now, I would argue it's probably more like 4 or 5 times that. But here you have the former head of the U.S. Mint basically coming out and saying that there isn't enough metal behind the contracts that are issued at the COMEX to affect delivery, that the banks are manipulating the price, and that's why the price is not reflective of demand, and that when you see a head of the former head of the Mint come out and talk about rehypothecation, talk about manipulation, and point his finger at the banks, I find it to be I don't know what I find it to be, interesting to say the very least. And then when we look at what the U.S. Mint came out and said yesterday, that the global silver shortage has driven demand for many of their bullion coins and numismatic products to record high. Again, the global silver shortage. Now, this is admission by the U.S. Mint that there is indeed a global silver shortage. And again, I've been talking about this ad nauseum for a long time. I don't say it to talk my book. I say it because getting product has never been more difficult. And when we look at the U.S. Mint, their inability to deliver product efficiently has never been more acute than it has been in 2021. Every single year, really, for the last decade, somewhere north of October, we run into some of their products that just get sold out. And their typical statement is, well, we're going to not produce anymore in anticipation of next year. And okay, fine. So there's a little bit of a dead zone at the end of November. And before you know it, it's already Christmas. And, well, the new stuff starts coming out. But what was shocking to me this year was that week 2, January, Gold Eagles and Gold Buffaloes went on allocation. And what that means is that you're going to get whatever they give you. And chances are it's nowhere near what you want. And to see in week 2, January, the mint start rationing gold eagles and gold buffaloes was as unusual as a snowstorm in August in southern Florida. It just doesn't happen. And really, that's been that way all year long with their tiny release of platinum, the difficulty getting any fractional gold eagles, getting buffaloes, getting eagles. Silver eagles are no better. Look at the premiums. This is exactly what I have expected to see in the industry at large for a long time. Now, my whole career, it's been normal to see these types of delay problems or a single mint running out of product, which can affect all the others because one of the 6 supply chains gets severed. But to see it happen this early in the year is just really shocking to me. And I think when you see the former head of the mint say that there's rehypothecation and point a finger at the commercial banks, it's beyond shocking. And even more funny, humorous is the U.S. Mint comes out at the end of this statement and says, while inconvenient to many, this deliberate delay will give the mint the necessary time to obtain web traffic management tools to enhance the user experience. Well, what they mean by that is a lot of people who were trying to order these new Morgan silver dollars, they got sold out in 25 minutes, and many people got bounced out of their system. The bottom line is simply this, Dunnigan. I truly believe, as I've said before, you're going to see more of this stuff. In fact, I'm talking to a bunch of the big distributors around the country, and I have yet to see anyone who gets more than 1 or 2 of these Gold Eagle boxes, the new ones that are on pre-order for July. They're already, I think, in my opinion, it's the same thing that we saw in 2020 with the Type 2. They're just releasing them in dribs and drabs, and there's just not enough supply. I don't think it has anything else to do with COVID or with retooling for Type 2 or web problems. It has to deal with the fact that they're having difficulty obtaining blanks. And for whatever reason, I think this is a problem that I don't see getting better anytime soon. In fact, I think you'll see it with all of the major mints, because when you see one leg cut off, the others then just start to get more and more demand, and then we see problems with the other mints. So I hope this isn't the beginning of a major shortage, but indeed this is exactly what we've been seeing on a wholesale side. And now it being admitted so by the U.S. Mint, is what we've been seeing really for the last almost 6 months.
There's something else that's a bit bewildering about the phraseology of their announcement. It says the global silver shortage has driven demand for many of our bullion and numismatic products to record heights. The causal relationship of a global silver shortage, which they're acknowledging for the first time, as far as I'm aware, ever officially here, they're acting as though, oh, that's a thing. Everybody knows about the thing. That's the thing. Everybody knows that there's a global silver shortage, and that's what's driving demand for our bullion and our numismatics. Do you think that that's even logical? Is it in fact describing that so many people are aware now that there is a global silver shortage that they're scrambling to get physical, and that's driving demand for our bullion? Or is this backwards logic that that's the high demand that's created the global silver shortage?
Right. So, look, it's backwards. Do you think there's any coincidence that you've seen record deliveries off of COMEX by the big smart money? Do you think there's any coincidence that you've seen, somewhere over 100 million ounces delivered off of COMEX in the first 2 delivery months? And by the way, in the registered category on COMEX, they only have about 115 million ounces registered right now. I mean, if the first 2 delivery months are indicative of that, what does that say for the rest of the year and the stock of silver? No, it's not that. I mean, there's a small portion. Look, the Wall Street Reddit group is up to 100,000 users, like our subscribers, like that. There are some people who realize, smell blood in the water, that there is a silver shortage, and I can't really say that that's driving demand for the U.S. Mint. To an extent, it's driving demand a little bit in the retail side for silver, but no, it's just an excuse. It's an excuse that is easy to write off after what happened with GameStop and AMC. I think it's backwards to that. I think indeed there is an awakening to the value that silver offers. And the more you dig into it, you can realize that there's a silver shortage. It may be exacerbating the demand. Maybe there are some really sophisticated, savvy big investors like the sovereign wealth funds who keep draining COMEX. Maybe it's starting from the top down, and big money realizes that, especially with Basel III reserve requirement rules coming into effect in a month, maybe they realize that this is the chance, and they better get their stuff now before real price discovery sets in. And I'm not saying real price discovery will happen immediately, but I'll tell you, those regulations should have a pretty darn quick effect on the ability of the European Central Bank, the European commercial banks, to step on the price of silver and gold on the London Metals Exchange, which is another rehypothecated 100-to-1 market. So do I think it has anything to do with the U.S. demand for Eagles? Maybe only 5 or 10%. I think it's more cause and effect. It's that is an effect of just massive demand. And I think the fact that there's a global silver shortage and they're finally admitting it, no, I just think it's just rhetoric at best.
One of the things you've talked about in the past, I just can't let go of this, is you've talked about Sun Tzu and the art of war and misdirection, and that as long as the big money, the central banks, the commercial banks, all these huge players are draining, millions and millions of ounces off the exchanges, it's not talked about. Not talked about. But now when it gets down to the retail level, where the little guys are buying 10 ounces or 100 ounces, and it can no longer, the pot has been boiling down and down and down, and it's about to go dry. Now it can be talked about like, well, after all, everybody knows there's a global silver shortage. Can you address just that aspect of it, of this, the art of war?
Yeah, well, it's classic misdirection. I mean, it's been misdirection for quite some time, because when you see price being managed, and yet the most well-informed and sophisticated investors really on the planet are taking possession of copious amounts of metal. I mean, as we've talked about before, the linear progression over the last several years by the big money has me convinced that gold and silver will be central to whatever comes next, or at least in a world of surveillance and loss of privacy. Now that Jerome Powell says they're going to start experimenting with central bank digital currencies, 65% of all of the central banks around the world are now experimenting with digital currencies. You already got the Bank of China, the Bank of England is talking about it, the Bank of Sweden. They're all talking about digital currencies. And I think big money understands now more than ever the relevance of precious metals in a world where there's going to be no privacy. And I think the ability for the big central banks to control monetary policy through spending money into an existence rather than lending it into existence, all of these things lead into the fact that the big sophisticated money is getting ahead of this, and they're doing it by taking possession. And who's to say the big money isn't buying coins too? I mean, you can buy coins with anonymity. You start taking possession off of COMEX, there's a little bit more of a paper trail. So who's to say that the big money just doesn't go and buy up everything they can in huge amounts? And I'll tell you that that's happened before. Ted Butler talks about it, that's how JP Morgan supposedly amassed so much of their silver stash, by buying up the Eagles and the Maple Leafs. And I remember when the market was very quiet, all of a sudden the U.S. Eagle and the Canadian Maple numbers jump up 2-3 times from what they've ever been. So is that the reason it's so difficult to get product? Is it happening at the same time? So, yeah, I think it's easy to focus on the retail end, and it's easy to blame the little guy, which also runs cover for the big money. No one talks about money coming off of COMEX. No one talks about 90 million ounces being backdoored out of SLV after the price was dropped by $4 over a period of 2 weeks after that. 90 million ounces taken out by the commercial banks. We don't hear about that. So, yeah, it's just more misdirection. Focus on the little guy and the conspiratorial aspect of us gold bugs, instead of realizing that this is really happening. I've done this for 31 years. I'm not a genius, but I can tell you I see what's happening. When I have to literally employ people to work nearly 24 hours a day, to get up in the middle of the night to talk to people in Australia and the United Kingdom and distributors around the globe, just to get ahead of the difficulty securing product and have to pay for it quick before others beat you to it and upfront 2-3 months in advance and wait and hedge, and none of this stuff happened before, none of it. So it's, to me, this is accelerating from the stuff we talked about last year when I said the market would define itself by an inability to source product. I meant it, and it's accelerating. And now when you see the U.S. Mint say, yeah, well, we really can't issue anything because there's a silver shortage, well, maybe that's icing on the cake. And I don't take joy in being right about this. I just know that my job description has changed dramatically from what it used to be. I took for granted the ease in getting whatever I wanted, more than I needed. And now I just hope that I'm able to get certain product and before it gets sold out, or just you can't get it. And this is I don't think the end of this type of rhetoric from the mints, or this environment where you're going to hear me saying it's disappearing, and not to the point where you just can't get it yet, but you can see it and you can feel it. It's becoming markedly harder to get your hands on anything substantive in terms of quantity. You
talked about the official acknowledgement coming so late in the game. You've been talking about this has been a pattern that's been going on for 4 years, 18 months, depending where you want to start counting. We interviewed on our previous channel, Reluctant Preppers, Brad Harris, the founder of Full Spectrum Survival, and we did an interview with him which was titled with his quote, "The official warning will always come too late." And that's the point, is by the time you wait for the official warning, the thing is baked in the cake, and it's already been happening, and those who have been positioning themselves have already been taking action accordingly. Well, let me comment on one thing. I like listening to E.B. Tucker. He's a smart guy, and I was watching an interview with him with Daniela Cambona, and talking about Jerome Powell saying we're now experimenting with digital currencies, and E.B.'s statement was it's already done. He says once you see it in the media where they say we're experimenting or we're open to it, it's already done. And he talks about chapter 17 of his book, which is a great book, Why Gold, Why Now? He talks about there was a quote from a central banker, and they redacted the guy's name because he didn't want to have undue attention paid to him, and basically said new digital are every central banker's dream, that they've been waiting for this forever. And, you know, I don't care if you're a central banker or friends of central bankers and they're rolling out a new digital currency. If you know this is coming, you're going to get long in gold and silver, and you're going to tell all your buddies, get long in gold and silver. It is your only life raft in an ocean of complete and total loss of anonymity, scrutiny, surveillance, no more tax evasion, no more counterfeiting. The whole debasement, absolutely. And so gold and silver are the life raft, and maybe it's the big sophisticated money. I mean, if we go back to 1933 and look at right before gold was confiscated, why is it that all the big money sent their gold across the Atlantic to the central bank or to the commercial banks in Europe? That's where they all went. They knew it was coming. They were alerted by their buddies, and off it went on steamship across the ocean. Same thing is happening here. The big money always wins. The little guy always makes the decisions based upon the news that's already, or that just comes out. You're way too late. And so I would argue that a lot of the things that we've been seeing, think Misdirection, think Sun Tzu, was that the big money knew about this, just like the central banks accumulating gold in 2018, more gold than they did in the 60 years combined previous. And then the next year, they come out with the Basel III agreement. The big money knows what's coming. They're ahead of the curve. And this is exactly what you're seeing right now. And now in a lame attempt to justify it, they say, well, it's, you know, there's a global silver shortage. Well, why did we hear about that just now? Yeah, and that's the other thing is again, back to that theme of the official warning will always come too late, is it's akin to what would start a run on the bank. In this case, a complete loss of confidence in the U.S. dollar, the banking system, the stock markets, etc. The Fed has always, and especially recently, taken this posture of appeasing, soothing words. You know, inflation is not is not out of control. We're going to have rates down for an extended period of time. All these things are not a problem. Nothing to see here, folks. Just go about your business. And now when there's finally the acknowledgement that, oh, yeah, there's a global silver shortage, but they're not even going to make a point out of that. They're just acting like that's just taken for granted. So if the powers that be, and the U.S. Mint is certainly up there on the food chain, if they're acknowledging publicly in their official statements that there's a global silver shortage, that seems like the kind of words that would potentially start a run on the bank if people are becoming aware of fractional reserve bullion schemes and that sort of thing, whether it's on the COMEX, whether it's in ETFs, wherever it is. It seems like when that language starts to come out, that is, if not the 11th hour, at least as close to it as you're going to get as far as when the official word starts coming out that there is, in fact, a global silver shortage. So any final words before we let you go?
No, I mean, I think this is as big and important as it gets done. Again, I think this is the reason why in February, March, in 4 months, you can see 100,000 people sign up with Wall Street Silver. People are waking up to it. And as we've talked about many, many, many times, remember, as Rick Rule often says, the average allocation over the last 40 years has been 2.5% to precious metals portfolios across the globe or across the United States. But a year ago, it was 0.5%. So if all we do is get to that 2.5% mean, that's a 5-fold increase in demand just here. But you're seeing it everywhere. You need to realize that if in the back of your mind you're thinking, well, maybe I should buy some gold and silver, I will tell you we will revisit this again. If things don't get markedly better anytime soon, and I don't see how they can in a global silver shortage, this will define the market 100%, the inability to get anything. And one last point. They say there's no bull market like a gold bull market for one reason. It is predicated on fear and concern. You don't have to see prices rise. Just talk like this, and I guarantee you your grip gets way tighter on your stack of silver. No one sells. No one's going back into fiat. It's rhetoric like this. It's validation like this from the U.S. Mint, from Ed Moy, the head of their U.S. Mint, who I couldn't even believe he was saying the things he was on Kitco News, that only crystallizes my belief, strengthens my grip. The secondary market is all but gone. And the more rhetoric we see like this, the more mint closures, the more supply chain problems, the more comments from officials on high posts, the more difficult it's going to become. And I just think it's going to define this market in many, many ways going forward. And it's being led by the biggest money in the world who are draining the exchanges and the ETFs through the backdooring of SLV. And they're draining all the physical metal and they're bringing it home. And it's very obvious to see done. Again, I think this is just the very beginning of more of this type of rhetoric. And there's truth behind it. I really, truly believe there is truth behind it. So for people who are thinking about getting metal, just get some. Develop a core position, and then cost average. Get some before it becomes really very difficult, much more difficult than it is now to get, because when one of these mints run out of product, it just starts to run on the others. And it doesn't take much. There's only 6 major mints in the world. You have a couple problems with a couple mints and it's over, just like that, because nobody is selling anything in this market going back into fiat. They're just not.
We'll put as many links for these official sources as we can in the description of this video, folks. This is not for us to have you taking our word for anything. We got a tip on this. We're trying to get the information out. Please spread this widely. Make sure everyone can be aware and prepared. That's the whole thing. That's the other slogan of our original Reluctant Preppers is I'd rather be 7 years early than 1 day late. So please don't let you or your loved ones, your family members be 1 day late. Andy Schectman, CEO of Miles Franklin Precious Metals, thanks for joining us for this quick news bulletin on Liberty and Finance.
Absolutely, Dunning. Have a great holiday weekend. I'll look forward to seeing you on Tuesday. Thanks for having me.
This is Dunnigan Kaiser, founder of Liberty and Finance. I'm now a licensed gold and silver broker for Miles Franklin. Call me directly for the physical gold and silver that you need at the best price with personalized private service from one of the oldest and best companies in the business. 31 years strong, A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, 0 complaints, licensed and bonded. For physical delivery, vault storage, or precious metals IRAs, excellent prices, privacy, and confidentiality. Pay by check, money order, ACH, bank wire, or Bitcoin. Satisfaction guaranteed. For fastest service, just call 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 888 81 Liberty, and either I or one of my sons and fellow brokers will call you back as soon as we can and understand your needs.